So let's talk about skill number one, removing reflex resistance. Okay, here's what I mean. There's two concepts that you need to learn that are backed by science. One, something called psychological reactants, and two, the principle of consistency. And here's how they work. Okay, psychological reactants is when a person feels that their ability to make their own choices at risk, or they feel pressured to do something. When that happens, the person instinctively pushes back. You do it and I do it. And reactance is at the core of why every single sale is lost. So let me give you an example that we have all experienced probably on a weekly basis. You walk into a department store, okay, because you're just so bored and you just want to go find something to do. And the sales clerk says, "Can I help you find something?" And what do you guys say every time without fail? "Nope, I'm just looking." Every single time. We'd all agree with that. However, here's what's interesting that happens in about 3, 4, 5 minutes later. You show up at the desk and then you actually purchase something. Well, how is that possible? When the person says, "Can I help you find something?" "No, I'm just looking. I'm just very bored. I'm just looking." No, that wasn't the case. It was your reflex saying, "Nope, I'm just looking." Because as soon as you felt that reactance, that's what we're talking about, you automatically wanted to push back. This is why when you tell a child, "Don't touch that hot stove, you're going to burn your damn hand. Don't touch the stove." What do they do every time? They touch the stove. That's reactance. Okay. So what we have to do is we have to lower that reactance, because let's face it, if you call a prospect out of the blue, do they have a lot of reactance towards you? Yes or yes? Absolutely. So we have to look at the science and say, how do we lower, or better yet, how do we remove the prospect's reactance? I'm going to show you how to do that in just a second. All right. So there's a study done by two behavioral scientists, and they wanted to find out, how in the world do we lower this reactance? Okay. The study was called the panhandler study. You guys can go look about, you guys can go do research on it, but let me share with you what happened. So the scientists took two groups of panhandlers, and they were going to go into a busy street and ask for money. One group of panhandlers just had a simple sign that just said, "Help." The other group of people also had the same message, but after they delivered that message, they used something that removed all of the reactants. And here's what they said. They said, "Of course, it's up to you." And what they found was the group that added that line got 400% more money. Why? Because we had to have the prospect or the person giving money make their own decision, that we weren't trying to force them to do anything, that it was up to them whether or not they wanted to donate or give money. And when we can do that, the likelihood of somebody's compliance goes up. In this study that the psychologist found was by 400%. So what we need to do is do the same thing when we're prospecting and generating new business, or we're meeting with buyers and sellers. We have to lower their reactance. They can't feel as though you're pressuring them. They have to feel as though things are their own idea. And again, I'll show you how to do that in just a second. Okay. Now let's talk about the second concept on how to remove reflex resistance. This is called the scientific principle of consistency. And what it says is, when a person makes a public commitment, the desire to be consistent with that commitment becomes immeasurable. I mean, it's so high that scientists can't even measure how high it is. And so they did a study. They did a study on a group of people that lived in this apartment complex. And they had they separated them into two groups. And the idea here was that local community wanted to build a recreation center. And half the group, they sent them a petition to sign to say, "Are you in support of this new construction?" They sent those out. Those people signed it, said, "Yeah, we're in support of that. We would love a recreation center." Okay, cool. And then the other people, they didn't send that petition. And here's what they found. When they went to ask for donations Okay, so the first group of people, they signed a petition. Yes, I absolutely publicly declare I'm in support of this. They didn't ask for any money yet. But when they went to go ask for money, 92% of the people that publicly declared that they are in favor of this gave money, where the people that didn't publicly sign the petition didn't give money. What does this suggest? What does this mean? This means that when people voice a commitment publicly, like, yes, I can help you move your couch this weekend, Yaz, the chances of me helping her to move her couch this weekend is immeasurably higher than had I not committed publicly. So what does this mean? So let me show you guys what I call the science-backed sales call opener that lowers reactants, and we take that principle of consistency. Okay, so here's, if there was a magic script, here's what it would be. So we call a prospect, we call a for sale by owner, and the prospect's name is Bob. Bob is always my favorite. It's like Bob and Sue for everything. So we always use their first name, because to you, your first name is the most beautiful word in the English language. Think back to school, right? You weren't paying attention and you're like, yes. And you're like, oh shit, yes, yeah, right? They catch you off guard, right? So this is used as a pattern interrupt in neurolinguistics. So we use the prospect's first name. So a man answers the phone. We're calling Bob. He says, hello. You say, Bob? He goes, yeah, who's this? You say, this is Brandon. I'm a realtor, and I know this call's out of the blue, but I was hoping to tell you why I called, and then you could tell me if we should talk or not. Fair enough? Now, we've given the prospect full autonomy to make their own decision whether or not we need to have this conversation. This is how we lower the prospect's reactants versus just pressuring them into a conversation that they may or may not want to have. So think about this the next time you call a lead, right? Do you just try to force your way into the conversation? Well, when we use science and we leave it up to the prospect, and then they say, yeah, well, what's up? Which they will, that takes the principle of consistency. When they verbalize their commitment to have the conversation with you, your conversations go so much smoother. The amount of objections and pushback that you get goes down dramatically.